Appealing to Canadian nationalism, Suncor Energy and Petro-Canada said Monday that a proposed merger between the two oil players would create the country's largest energy company and provide the oil patch with protection against potential foreign buyouts. CBC News, March 23rd, 2009. If we fast forward, and I'm going to do my best Peter Mansbridge here, Potash Corporation of Saskatchewan and Agri-Mink of Calgary have agreed to merge in a deal that would create a global agricultural giant with the enterprise value of $36 billion US. The deal would bring together Saskatoon-based potash cores, huge fertilizer mines with Agrium's extensive global direct-to-farmer retail network to create an agricultural colossus. CBC News, September 12, 2016. So folks, things don't change. The more they stay the same, the more they change. Mergers, acquisitions, takeovers, whatever you want to call them, aren't going away. They'll continue to be used as an economic lever for businesses to grow or just to even survive. In these current difficult economic times, industries of all kinds are going through what I call corporate disruption. Mergers, acquisitions, shifting economics, employee downsizing, cost-cutting, joint ventures, executive succession, unexpected executive departure. You can figure that one out. A change in command. How many of you in this room have experienced one of those? Okay. So I know I most certainly have, and so it's the reason why I wrote a grand dinner party. Tonight's focus is really going to be more on the merger acquisition disruption that my own experience. But to be clear, in that experience, it wasn't all bad. There were a lot of things done right. But, as I thought about it, you really only hear about the deals, the dollars and the cents of the deal, and, maybe you might hear about some layoffs, but you never really actually hear about what happens with the people. And the employee narrative is the one that I wanted to capture in this story. I also, in my own experience, know that they can be done better. They're a difficult thing, moving a lot of people and making changes that impact folks, but I thought there's some things that can be done better, and so I decided to write about it. So, why do companies need to manage these corporate disruptions better? What's the issue? Well, Bloomberg BNA says that $11 billion is lost in the United States each year due to employee turnover. Now, conversely, according to Gallup, earnings per share increased 147% for companies that increase their engagement. Now, according to the all-knowing Wikipedia, an engaged employee is defined as one who is fully absorbed by and enthusiastic about the work, so takes positive action to further the organization's reputation and interests. So, if a company is only focusing on the deal and doesn't have a plan for employee engagement, the costs are real, and guess what? They're pretty measurable too. The loss of employees, turnover, the loss of corporate intelligence and experience that walks out the door with those employees, the cost of recruitment to replace those people, and quite frankly, churn. Churn is yucky. I call it chaos. As an employee engagement expert, I try and be a trusted advisor who can see the landscape for what those disruptions cause and make sense of the turmoil. Because you know what? I lived it and I breathed it. Not just as an employee, as Heather was so kind to remind me. That was a headache that I needed a pill for back then. But not just as an employee, but a person who is responsible for people and process integration. In my practice, I am the chaos preventer. I work with executives and business owners to do two things: determine the outcome that the organization wants to achieve, and then create a customized roadmap that can help achieve that desired outcome. The result is engagement. And when you have engaged employees, guess what else you have? Productivity. Sounds simple, but man, it's hard work, and even as we speak, organizations today still only continue to focus on getting the deal done, just like those excerpts I shared with you. You've got to have an engagement plan to ensure productivity through all the stages of a merger. So I want to quickly tell you about my view, what I consider 3 stages of a merger or an acquisition, and really they can apply to a lot of the corporate disruptions we talked about, but this is specific to mergers and acquisitions. There's 3: transformation, pre-transformation, and then, transaction, pre-transformation, and then the transformation. Did you catch that? Transaction, pre-transformation, and transformation. The first phase is called the transaction, and that's where we make the deal. This is when the company is actively seeking to make a deal. They're doing their homework, the finances, the assets, the legal homework that needs to be done to see if a deal can be made. And you know what? This tends to be the primary focus of businesses. And therein lies the opportunity to do it better. At the outset, at the very beginning of any corporate transaction, there has to be a dedicated and committed focus, equal focus on the impact to employees and the dollars and cents of the deal. And it can't be left to HR to figure out, and it can't be left to evolve organically. Why? Because the next phase after the transaction is called pre-transformation. The pre-transformation phase is the period of time right after the deal's been completed and it's been communicated internally and externally. During this phase, you're going to ask, if you're a company, a business owner, or an executive, your employees to work very hard to achieve your desired outcome. They're going to be the ones that are going to do the heavy lifting that integration requires and put the pieces of the new company together. This is a really critical time in any company's journey, and it determines who will run the company and how. Employees at this stage need to know why you're making the deal. They need to know their purpose and the direction the company is heading. Now notice I called this pre-transformation and not integration. You can't transform unless there's a dedicated focus and plan to manage through one of the toughest parts of any merger or acquisition. Now, if this isn't thought through and it's left to evolve organically, you'll get a pile of something organic, all right, and you ain't gonna like it. You need to have a plan to maintain that precious productivity. The final phase of a merger or acquisition is what I call the transformation. And the transformation is the achieving the intended outcome of the transaction. Okay, so we want to make the deal. We want to see that deal come to life. If done properly, it can enable growth and opportunities for the new company and the employees. In my view, this is a phase that's rarely given a continued dedicated focus by executives and business owners. And again, this is my view. And that's because true transformation takes time. We're in a short-term world, folks. Synergy, short-term incentives, market shift, all of these things are combating with maintaining an ongoing focus. But if you really want to transform, you need to have that continued focus. Being clear on the transformation you seek is imperative, and if you don't plan for it, your deal's going to fail. To paraphrase from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And guess what? It'll be a costly road. So to that end, I think there should be a fresh mindset for employee engagement in mergers and acquisitions, or really any corporate disruption. Now tonight, we have this beautiful table setting, and Jan kind of alluded to this idea of a grand dinner party. So what the heck does a grand dinner party have to do with a merger or acquisition? You're probably asking yourself. A grand dinner party, the analogy is designed specifically to highlight the steps that an executive or business owner can take to navigate their employees through those 3 stages that I just explained. Now think about it. Look at this beautiful table setting. When you are planning a party at your own home, there are certain things that you do. You establish the theme or the reason for your party. You create the invitations and determine who you're going to invite. You set the table specifically for the type of meal that you're going to serve. You welcome your guests to your home when they arrive. And you serve them a great meal, including hopefully a fabulous dessert. All of these steps are taken to create the stage for dialogue, camaraderie, and a common celebration. Now, what if we approach mergers and acquisitions with the same intent of inviting our employees to an occasion where they're considered important guests and there's a reason for them to come together? So let me break this down for you. In a corporate context, the new company's vision is the theme or the reason for the merger or acquisition. If you're making this deal, declare your vision. The company's values are its invitation. What values will attract and retain your new and existing employees? The onboarding plan that I'm going to help you with serves as the welcome to your employees to the new company. And the pre-transformation plan is really about setting the table for managing the integration process. What processes, what tools, what technology will be used in that new company? You don't want your guests rummaging through the cabinets to make their own dinner. Set the table so they know what to expect. And finally, dessert to me is like culture. I call culture that delicious dessert because you know what? When you've had a great dessert, you remember it and you want to experience it over and over and over again. Okay. I use this analogy because it's simple, not simplistic, but simple. And also because it highlights a concept that I share in the book, and that is the concept of a mindset of invitation. Inviting employees to help transform their company and workplaces into something better. So to end off, I want to share a couple of excerpts from the book, just so you can get a flavor of it, and just so you know, you will be receiving a copy as you leave today. So I hope that you take time to read it, and I'd love to hear what you think. But I want to share a little bit more about this mindset of invitation during corporate disruptions. The excerpt I'm going to read for you right now is in the context, is my experience in the pre-transformation phase. So we're right in the thick of integration activities. Think of an apple cart as a familiar metaphor. For many employees, a merger or acquisition will represent a much-needed shift, providing opportunities for personal and professional growth. So they'll be adding apples to their cart. For others, their apple cart will be knocked over, and this will initially cause some apprehension and result in emotional and maybe mental numbness for a time. Imagine the cart holds many apples, and they represent significant professional elements that comprise a person's corporate identity and their persona. For example, one apple represents a person's confidence, knowledge, and experience they've gained in their current position. Another signifies the person's ego, their personal and professional identity. And yet another represents relationships with coworkers, with others developed on a professional level. As employees witness their apple cart tumbling over, it is very emotional. All of those important professional attributes gained are now dropping out of the cart and onto the ground. The fear that welled up within me when my apple cart was upset was not so much about the fear of the unknown that was yet to unfold. It was about what I was going to lose. Losing the job that I enjoyed, interesting work that challenged me and got me jumping out of bed in the morning was part of that fear. Losing the camaraderie and professional relationships with colleagues, something I cherish, added to that fear. Losing connection and footing with what I'd known and come to take for granted was an unnerving disruption. Your employees may be grappling with some of this as well. And I'll just share one other short excerpt before we close here. And this speaks further to the employee experience. And this is called bruised ego. My definition of a bruised ego is when an employee, or when employees with a high level of skill, ability, and performance can't utilize any of that energy to contribute to the newly emerging entity. The ego is bruised because there's a chasm between the memory of being efficient and productive and the reality that those skills may no longer be needed, wanted, or acknowledged. The employee and the ego are caught in an uncomfortable position. It is important to recognize that there's a tension created between leveraging resident knowledge and managing resistance to change. How that tension is managed will eventually determine your employee's ability and desire to stay with the new organization. I shared that experience with you because I want to leave each one of you with an authentic sense of what disruption was like for me, what it's like for employees, and how it can impact employee productivity. You feel like you're working in an abyss sometimes, and your loyalty to your company can be fragile. That feeling is real, it has impact, and guess what? It matters. Now, each company's situation is going to be different and will require a customized approach. But companies can increase their chances of success for employee engagement by doing 3 things. And if you take anything away from this night, these 3 things. Plan, acknowledge, share. Plan. Have an employee engagement plan right at the start of any corporate disruption or change in your company. Acknowledge your employees. Acknowledge their experience and contributions. And finally, share. Use a mindset of invitation wherever you can. Now, I try to be gracious, and sometimes I can be bold, like writing a book. Holy cow. And tonight I want to be graciously bold. If your company or a company that you know of is going through a corporate disruption, shifting economics, employee downsizing, cost cutting, a change in command, and you want to ensure employee engagement and productivity, let's continue the conversation. I can help. So before we close off, there's a few thank yous that I want to share. You don't get to a place like this, having all you awesome people come out on an event like this, on a night like this, or writing a book. You can't do it by yourself. So I want to extend a sincere thank you to Jan Eden. Wow, that's our story. Jan is tireless, and you know what? Over these last 3.5, 4 years, I couldn't have done this without you. The idea even to do this, germinated in your mind. Thank you for your kindness, your wisdom, the support. You're a force of nature. To the folks in the room that some of them were unable to attend that I interviewed for the book, Perry Schuldes, Margot McAuliffe, Donna Garbett, and Heather Eddy. I thank each of you for letting me interview you for the book and sharing your thoughts and your perspectives. I also see Mark Saunier and Don Zentner, who I also interviewed, so thank you for coming out tonight. I can't see where you are, but thank you. Heather, thank you again for that awesome introduction, for everything you've done for me, and for being an amazing person and a friend. Adrian, thank you for being my sounding board and my partner in crime. Thank you. And I want to thank my family that's here tonight. My mom, my dad, my brother Rob. You guys set my very first dinner table. These folks showed me through hard work and perseverance that you can really achieve anything. And for those younger folks in the room, that's true. Perseverance and hard work, you can do it. So go for it.